Hello, everyone. This is the very first PolePedia Show. Woo! So I am Kim Kida, and I'm here today with Destiny, my esteemed
No.
co-host. And so why are we doing this show? What is this show even about? Why are we here? So essentially, the PolePedia Show is just to kind of branch off of what our PolePedia website does. So it is a community-based resource, and so is the show. The show is going to talk about pole on and off the pole. So off the pole, all about pole news, competitions, workshops, and then general things within the pole community. And then on the pole section, which starts in the next 2 weeks, it's going to
Mhm.
break down moves heavily. How do we condition for them? What are the flexibility exercises we should do? Common mistakes, safety measures, things of that nature. For our first poll show, we're going to start talking about, let's talk about how to navigate all of those poll move names. There are so many of them for just one simple trick. How do we get through all of them? So,
I'm
Destiny,
sure it's
let's.
something that we've all complained about at one point or another.
What is this move called? How do I search it on Instagram?
Yeah.
So I'm going to pass it off to Destiny and let her talk a little bit about why we chose this subject to start with.
Yeah, so one thing that I've especially been seeing lately, since people are uh, training more at home, they're looking up their own resources more with COVID, all the lockdowns going on, is they're posting more content. They're trying to search new move names like, oh, what do I call this? Well, I'm not finding it on this hashtag, so what is it actually called? Um, and things like that. And then you have people come out of the woodwork and they're sitting there saying, like, why are you calling it this? It's this. Or why are you posting this and putting it forward? Like, I saw somebody did a tutorial on a chopper invert or basic invert or
Hmm.
whatever you want to call it, invert. And somebody got upset at her and started almost cyberbullying her because it was that person had learned it as a spinning chopper invert
Okay.
instead of just like up. And she was being told like to take the video down and everything like that. It's like, okay, this is a problem. And I'm seeing things like that happen a lot more uh,
Okay.
now that people are at home more.
Yeah, we're at home, so we no longer have, our trusted instructors giving us names. But just because our instructors have learned a certain name doesn't necessarily mean that it is the end all be all.
Mm.
And just because one name is in particular maybe the name that you hear the most. So like, we were talking about like, how it's an outside leg hang or maybe it's a Gemini, right? Depending on
Yeah.
where you're at, you're gonna hear something different, and that's okay. And so we, there's all of these different names for everything. And when we're at the studio, we're hearing certain things. But then you start searching for yourself. Maybe it's a move that you want to practice, or you're trying to hashtag your move on Instagram or Facebook, and you come up with all the craziest stuff. And you're like, what even is this? Right. And so when you have this like name superiority coming out, it's kind of like in a negative context, right?
It
Because
can be discouraging.
it can be very discouraging. Because you don't want to feel like you've learned something wrong. Nothing feels worse than when you've learned something, you're like, oh, I was taught wrong. So then, if you're listening to these people who have like this superiority, like in a certain name, if you're listening to those people and taking those words to heart, well, that could maybe sow some like distrust within your community, and things of that nature, right? You don't really
Yeah.
want that. Um, so personally, for me on move names, I really feel like it's okay to have multiple ones. Both myself and Destiny have traveled and, been in many different studios. And no
Yeah.
matter where you go, there's going to be some differences. Same thing when you travel to a new country. Like, I've been to the UK. They don't always, they don't call sneakers sneakers like we do in America. They call them trainers.
Mm-hmm.
And that's okay. I just adapt to that situation, right? I start calling them trainers instead. because that's just the culture of where I go. And it doesn't necessarily have to be cross country to get a new pole move name. It could literally be the studio down the road that calls it something
Hmm.
just a little bit different.
Yeah, I think it was. I've the first three studios I ever went to, they called a leg hang three different things. And so when I moved studios, I asked the teacher like, oh, I want to do a Gemini, and she honestly didn't know what I was talking about, even though that's still a very common name. Like she's like, what do you mean a leg hang? And then I felt dumb because then I'm sitting there going, okay, well, I'm at that point I was brand new to pole and I'm like, okay, am I saying something wrong? Like, do I not know the terminology like I thought I did? Like I didn't realize how insidious it was for there to be so many different names. And it can be, I think, Kim, when I first started talking to you, that was the first time I heard a genie called a froggy.
Oh,
It's, and it took me aback because, like, even now, I had no idea. I've always just known it as genie.
uh-huh. Yeah, I've been taking classes with instructors overseas, and I can't remember what it's called now, and that's racking my brain, but it's like I call it a jasmine. Some people call it I call it a jasmine. When I was in Vegas teaching, we called it a chess man because you push through with your chest. So that's what made sense to us. But I learned it from an instructor who learned all of her pole moves in German. So
Mm,
she had to translate to English for the pole moves and then bring it to us. So I mean there might have been some, translation just changes in between there. Um, but I've heard it called many, many different things. Like there are so many different things that you could call that move. But I mean that applies to almost all moves. Even the simplest of move, like your dip spin, could also be an around the world,
mm-hmm.
right? So I don't know of any trick in particular that really has like this one certain name. Maybe your
Yeah, maybe
shoulder
like,
mount, but that's gonna be
yeah.
like about it.
That's kind of what came to mind is like shoulder mount. Because even basic inverts, like I was talking about, like there's three different names for the same type of
Hmm.
invert, and
Yeah, where
it's
I
just
learned it
it. Yeah,
I learned it as a chopper, right?
yeah,
Because I felt like a helicopter. I was like, whee, right? So I learned it as a chopper. But then later, I started teaching it. And so now I'm teaching it just as an invert, right? Just be upside down. But that doesn't, to me, it still doesn't feel very like definitive because I'm telling you to invert, but there's a million different ways to get upside down, right? There's your
yeah,
handstands, there's, falling down into it from like your jasmine to your outside leg hang, right? There's a million different ways to get upside down. So there's, adding the word basic to it is great, right? But I think the biggest thing is, especially, so I'm going to talk a little bit about how, as a teacher, I deal with all the different names. So, as a
hmm,
student, I was just like, oh, okay, like give me more knowledge, and then kind of wherever I'm at, that's the terminology I'm going to use. I don't
yeah,
want to have people staring at me, which is not very fun because people don't tend to like when you call it something different. Kind of how
yeah,
you felt a little bit different when you were like, oh, can I do a Gemini? And she's like, what is that?
yeah.
And you're like, oh, sorry, Lucy Doodle. Like, did I learn this wrong? Am I crazy? Were the
Yeah,
people
and
at my
if you
previous studio
can't
crazy?
and if you're not at the level to actually perform that move, you have to spend so much time trying to explain it too.
Oh, that's my favorite. So, as a teacher, what I do with this is when I am teaching a move, I will try to remember as many names as possible so that when my students film themselves and tag stuff on Instagram, right, they can find the right tags and it also sticks into their brain a little bit better, right? So I learned the genie as the froggy. And for anyone who learned the froggy as the froggy, you'll understand what I mean. But I learned it as the froggy. It makes a little bit of sense. You're kind of like frogged up on the pole, right? A little bit silly, but super funny. So I learned it as the froggy. And then I moved, to a different area and started learning it as the genie. And I was like, oh, okay, like that's fine. So now I know the different names. So now when I teach it, I start with the word froggy because that's the one that makes the most sense to me. But then I move and I'm like, All right, today we're going to start with our froggy, but it's also called a genie. You might hear that somewhere else. And then I just keep going on with my life. Like, I don't tell them which name to prefer it as. Pretty much, even if my old, like, even my students who have been with me for a long time, they'll hear me still call it both, just in case that's what they are, like, it's what their brain is used to hearing. But at
Mm.
this point, they should be used to hearing like 14 names for every trick because that's pretty much where we're at.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the superiority that comes in is other people moving in from these more developed industries. Like you have in ballet, you have a name for everything,
Hmm.
but with pole dancing, like it varies from place to place because it all developed from the strip clubs where people were just trying to make a paycheck and teach them, yeah, I kind of do this. We'll call it this. Like and we're still a very young industry and we're just now starting to come into this era where we're like, okay, we have a lot of people, let's figure our stuff out and actually start figuring out what to call everything standard.
Hmm.
And it's also difficult because aside from like the move dictionary, there's no place for that. There's no platform for that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, pole is just this big, like, it's honestly like the biggest, like, community, like, activity that I've ever been a part of. I'm sure there's bigger in the world, but as far as something that I've been a part of, pole is a huge community activity. We build off of each other, right? So if you're scrolling through Instagram and you're like, I really like that, right? So you'll try it and then tag them and then you teach your students and they learn it from
Yeah.
you. And it's just this thing that you keep going on and on. We're still creating new moves. Like, there are moves that people are like, it's a pretty shape. What's it called?
Yeah.
I have no clue. I just get into it like this.
Yeah, I've
Right?
had people ask me like, "What is this exact move?" And I sat there for like 20 minutes like, "I have no idea."
You're like, I'm
Okay, let's
supposed to
try to
know.
research this. Yeah, I'm supposed to know. Let's research this. And like 30 minutes later, I still had no idea because I couldn't find anything like it.
Google image search is not a help when it comes to pole dance moves at
No.
all. I've been there as well. When you're like, help, please, have you ever seen this? And I'm like, I've never seen that in my life. And then I Google image search it, and it's just all of these like people on boats, and I'm like, does not even close.
Yeah. Or pole vaulters.
Oh,
That's my
that's even better.
favorite.
But yeah, so we're this huge community, and you're right. There is a bunch of other things like, ballet or, swing dancing. Any modern like dance is going to have very technical terms for what they do. They've been around for a lot longer
Mhm.
and, they're servicing more people probably than the pole industry right now. Hopefully the pole industry gets bigger. But like they're servicing everyone and obviously the best way to teach everybody everything across the board, right, and have something as structured as like ballet, like you said, is to have maybe one name. But I'm sure even ballet has like in small pockets of the world where people call something just a little bit different,
Yeah.
right? Even as something as basic as your pirouette, right? We have the pirouette in pole dancing, but it could literally refer to a couple of different things depending on
Yeah.
where your arms are. Um, so while these really established industries have all of these like hardcore names where you're just like, this is it. This is the name for this. We're going to teach it all over the world and everyone agrees.
Mhm.
Pole's not like that. You're right. We are a baby industry, like 20 years, maybe a little bit more, still a pretty baby industry across the board.
Yeah.
Um, and I can promise you that when you're coming up with a new trick in the strip club, you don't really care what it's called. You're just like, they like it and I get money, fantastic. And when you're
Yeah.
trying to teach someone else, right, you're just like, this, right? A lot of our names, like a shoulder mount, very just flat on, not a whole bunch of fancy name, like stuff like the Aisha, right? That's a like a fancier name, but with our shoulder mounts, we're just like, this is a shoulder, and we go up on it. Like,
Yeah.
I can't imagine when someone named that they were like, booty in the air, like whatever, right? Like
Yeah.
they're not too
Like
worried about it.
yeah, I mean, I know the move where you put your foot up on the pole and you just swing your other leg up around, called a step up. Easy. I
Also
can
called a
remember that.
Ryko.
Exactly. It's like like what are you what are you supposed to exactly look for when you're trying to learn this stuff too? And that's another problem, is like people who are looking for education on this outside of strip clubs, outside of personal mentors, personal instructors, like what are they supposed to look up?
Hmm.
And that's the other difficulty that I think we're just starting to really hit as an industry.
Hmm. It is. And you're right. COVID's not making it any better.
No.
But in a way, like there's the silver lining to this, right? COVID happened, we're all sitting at home. If you're lucky enough to have your pole at home, that's great. But you're still trying to do stuff. And even if you're not, I promise you're scrolling Instagram, because if you're pole dancing, you're addicted. You're scrolling Instagram, you're like, oh, this is awesome. I want to try that when my studio opens back up. And if you don't save it, or you're trying to tell your instructor like, this is what I want to do, but they're like, what even is that? You're trying to explain something to me, I have no clue what it is. You show them the shape and they're like, I've never seen that before. We'll try and break it down. And then, guess what? A new name emerges.
Yeah.
Right? A new name emerges, but it's in that one community. So then that person posts something on Instagram and they're like, I did this today and we're going to call it this. And then,
Yeah.
whoa, it's a cycle, right? So it takes off and there's a name for it now, but then other people are going to call it other things, because guess what? I
Mm-hmm.
promise, if one person has taken it to their instructor and said, what's this? And we give it a name, at least somebody else in the world has done the same thing.
Yeah, and those branch off, and social media is a very powerful tool.
Super powerful. So once you start hashtagging it, and if a trick goes viral where like all of the, pole superstars are trying this trick and they're saying, "Oh, I really like this and this is what it's called," but you get like Dan Rosen is calling it like the super scary leg hang, right? And then somebody else is like spooky leg on the outside, right? And now you've got two different names and
Yep.
you've got them coming from people that are influencers in the community, and then depending on who you follow, that might be how you like determine like which move name is superior, right? So
Yeah.
the origins of names are absolutely wackadoodle. It's super fun to investigate, but it's super crazy. But
It drives me crazy when there's two of the same name, or there's the same name for two different tricks. So I remember, I think it was Spider Man was a move name that I was trying to find at one point for a themed challenge. And I was getting what I later found to be the Buddha. I was getting
I know
just
what trick you're talking
inverted
about.
crucifixes. Yeah. I was just getting inverted crucifixes, and then I was actually getting like what I was looking for. So there's three different tricks under the same name. And everybody's calling them Spider-Man. And
Oh.
and like I think part of it is like themed challenges and things like that. People are like, we'll make up this shape, but we want it to be this theme, so we'll
Hmm.
call this and we'll just put this shape to it. And because I've seen that happen too.
Yeah, no, it gets pretty wild. Like when like some of the names like have some relatively like cool origins, like your Jamila, right? Named after Jamila, the amazing instructor, right? So the Jamila is named after her, which is really cool. But I've also heard it called an apprentice, and I have
Mm-hmm.
no clue. I'd love to know the origin of that one. I have no clue where that one came from, but I've heard it in both. And so
Mm-hmm.
obviously I refer to it as a Jamila, but again, while teaching, I'm like, hey, you may also find it called this somewhere online.
Yeah.
And, I am, you and I are doing our research, right, for the Move Dictionary, trying to find as many names as possible. Obviously, we can't get them all without community input, but we're going to attempt to find what we can. And
Yeah.
so, with that, I try to relay to my students. And while I am a tiny little section of the world, like hopefully it spirals down so that people are like, oh, there are multiple ways to call this trick. And
Yeah.
that's okay. I prefer this one. It makes the most sense to me, right? Because if I call it, if I call again, let's use the Jasmine versus the chess man. When I think Jasmine, I think the princess. And when I do that trick, nothing to me clicks and says princess. Like that doesn't feel like a very princessy move.
It does
I'm
not.
trying to kick myself in the face. Like that doesn't feel like a princess move to me. But when I learned it as the chess man, obviously it made sense because I am pushing with my chest. I am trying to really keep my chest up and push my hand down. So
Mm-hmm.
learning it as a chess man also helped me know that like don't let your chest droop. If your chest droops, down you go.
Yeah.
Also, your shape's gonna look terrible, but like, so some names make a lot of sense and then some don't, kind of like we were talking about, right, with like shoulder mount. That makes sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I I'm always curious to know what the origin is, but if there are different names for the move, I'm cool to learn them and will essentially use whatever I find in that area. So, if the current studio that I took over, right, they call them, Gemini Scorpio instead of inside and outside like hangs. I've
Mhm.
switched. I start using it that way. Why? Because I don't want to disrupt what they've been learning just
The
because I want to
current
call it something
studio
different.
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, but I am going to inform them like, hey, other people in the world call it this. If that's what you want to call it, cool. Otherwise, here's some cool information. Let's keep rolling, right? It's
Yeah.
not, well, I call it this and now you're going to.
Yeah, and then you also don't want to exclude them from that because when I switched studios, The Apprentice and Jamila was a great example because I learned it as Jamila, and then I switched studios, and they only knew it as Apprentice. They didn't know Jamila at all,
Hmm.
and I was honestly confused because I thought that they were two separate moves. But I was afraid to ask because, again, like this is back when I was a baby polar and I still wasn't sure about like terminology. And I was afraid of being wrong.
Yeah, that makes sense for sure.
Yeah, and so I think it was going on like 6 months. I thought they were two completely separate moves, so I just honestly avoided both.
You're like, I never want to do either of those. Don't talk to me about
Yeah,
this at all, ever.
and it finally clicked when somebody miscalled it a Jamila and then corrected themselves, said, "Oh, I'm sorry, an apprentice," and then did the move, and I'm like, "Oh, mind blown."
I'm not crazy.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, no. The other thing I've come across recently, so I've moved down here somewhere in California, and the other thing I've noticed recently, just working with a couple of my students, who prefer like they them pronouns. Some moves they don't prefer the gender aspect on them. Um,
Mhm.
And so that might be something that we start to see in the pole community. I don't know, it depends. I try to be, very accommodating to everyone and however they feel. So, great example, the Superman. Um, if I'm working with someone who's like they them and they aren't comfortable with that term, I will switch it. Just super person,
Yeah,
superhuman,
I think
something.
that's a great way to do it.
Yeah, like there's a lot of, and even when I taught, other things, oh, the greatest example, and you and I both know how many names this trick has. Hello boys, hello sailor, big hello, right? Or just hello, right? Like there's a million names for that, but
Wrist sit.
yeah, wrist it.
Like,
I think it's good to have a couple of different things to fall back on because hello boys, not everyone wants to say hello to boys.
mhm.
To be honest with you. And so big hello works great. Wrist sit works great. It's not a gendered thing. So for certain people, having a different name to call it might make them more comfortable on that kind of level instead of just, hey, that's what my old studio called it. Now I'm happy. Some people really just have a personal preference, and that's okay. Like, I will accommodate that to the end of the earth. Like, to the
Yeah,
best of my ability, I will be like, all right, we're going to call it the big hello. Or if you want to say
yeah.
hello, girls, I'm totally cool with that too. Or
I
hello,
mean,
people.
that's literally what the pole community is about, is like making sure everybody has this safe space where they feel welcome.
Yeah,
So if the move names are making people uncomfortable, then yeah, change it.
let's switch it up.
Yeah, switch it up. But let's also reference it and make sure people all know it's this move, no matter what name we're talking about.
Yeah, so both you and I have said, when we're teaching, we try and give as much context as possible, right? I try and hit at least the top three names of what it could be called. Great example of where I do not hit all of those names is funky grip. So, funky grip is where you serve your arm up and you sacrifice your elbow pit to the gods of pole, and then you grab up. And you can either grab on top or cup, your choice, right? Depending on what trick you're doing. But funky grip, there are like 14 names for that one. So I try to
Yeah.
hit like three and then I move on with my life because funky grip, bicep grip. dinosaur grip, if you haven't heard
Blood
that one.
donor grip.
Blood donor grip, because I've definitely given blood like this.
Right.
So like I try to hit like the top three names that I think, are the most active in the community, right? Things that I am seeing the most and things that you and I have
Hmm.
researched that we see the most. So
Yeah.
try to hit those and then, tell them like, hey, it's very possible that you come across bless you, child. It's very possible you come across it in a different name. These are not the end all be all names of this. You may hear
Yeah.
it as something totally different.
Yeah.
So that's nuts. So we talked about the kind of the problem that we're seeing, in the community with there's a lot of names, which isn't necessarily a problem as long as it's well documented.
Yeah.
And though there's something for you to preference and how it can lead to like some cyberbullying, which I think is really sad. Pole is supposed to be a very happy place. It's supposed to be a welcoming place, and of course, it's not a group thing without drama because as a group, there's going to be drama somewhere somehow.
Yeah.
But I don't think this should be the drama we focus on, right?
I also think it's very far and few between, all
Yeah,
things considered, which is amazing.
yeah, that's
But
fantastic. For the most part, people will just like kind of give you like a funky look, and they're like, okay, sure.
yeah.
Our culture kind of we call it this, and then okay, dokie. Like most people will adapt to it, right, and have no issues. But in the small cases that we do have, we want to squash those before anything really gets out of control, because we don't need that. We're a community of people who are supposed to uplift each other in our spaces where we feel vulnerable. Like pole dancing is something for a lot of people where they have the freedom to feel sensual or have the freedom to feel sexual or just be themselves, right?
Hmm.
And so, taking something that someone's learned and being like, that's not right, that's going to take them back at least a step, like
Yeah.
down a few notches. They're like, oh, I did something wrong. Or they're going to tell you to go, eat it on
Yeah.
the internet. Depends on who you're talking to.
I mean, best case scenario, it's not going to be the highlight of their day. Worst
No,
case scenario, it's going to put a serious stamp on their motivation.
absolutely. Because they're like, well, now I got to go figure out the right thing. Are my people teaching me wrong? Right. So let's kind of talk about the Move Dictionary. We've referenced it a couple of times, and not everybody knows kind of what the Move Dictionary is. So this was
Right.
something that you dreamed up. So let's talk a little bit about how you dreamed it up and then what it's come to now.
Yeah. So seeing a lot of these issues is honestly the motivation for the Move Dictionary as a concept. I kept on seeing, like, as I moved studios, I kept on seeing like this name, this name, this name, and I kept on seeing like people posting on Facebook like, "Oh, what do you call this?" And then they get 30 million answers, and they're all different. And there wasn't a platform for people to come together and say like, this is this move and it's called these things, like accepting that, yeah, we've already made all of these names and they're not going to go away, and that's fine, they don't
Yeah.
have to, but we need to know that they are this move. And a lot of the other like video lessons that I see are always teaching like this one specific move, and they never reference it at all.
Yeah.
It's just like, this is that move, and that is all that's going to be said about it. Not necessarily in a bad way, just that's the way it's done. And so I wanted to provide a platform where you had, here's the most common name, and it's a lot of it's community driven, a lot of it's done by polls or community input. This is what we're going to call this, and it's also called these things.
Hmm.
Here's how you break it down. Here's safety tips, because you shouldn't have to pay money to not hurt yourself.
Yeah.
And just doing like a couple of common mistakes, how to fix them, because people always have trouble with like their invert. They have trouble like pulling their head back, tilting their head back, and lifting the hips up because they don't know to do those things.
Yeah, when you're a baby polly, you're like, how do I, what? My body's supposed to
Yeah.
do what?
Yeah. So I wanted to put together a platform where we could take all of these things under one roof.
That makes sense. And
And
so this is
you've yeah.
and so this is where I kind of come in, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
actively as a teacher right now, I love like Obviously I love teaching. I'm obsessed with it. I have a like serious problem with it. And so that's something that I really appreciated as also someone who's moved around to a couple of different studios, attended the studios because I do think it's great to learn from new people, rather than just like this is the teacher that I learned from and everything I know is from that person. In order to build
100% agree.
in order for me to build my own style, I'm going to take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and a little bit from there, right? But I'm going to go around and I'm going to, check out other studios and see what's happening. You can always learn something from different people. There's always something, whether it's a move that clicks because they explained it differently, or,
Yep.
new names, or just new tricks in general. Like, you're gonna learn something new from a brand new, like, studio or instructor. Very rarely do I ever walk in the door of somewhere and learn nothing.
Yeah.
And maybe if I'm taking like an intro class, but I took an intro class at the studio I'm at now and completely learned a new way to start people conditioning for inverts. And I was like,
Mm.
that's amazing. Like, yes. So, even an intro, no matter how advanced you are, you can probably learn something new.
Yeah.
Unless you've been doing it for like 20 years and you're Fania and you created a lot of common pole dancing.
Yeah.
Might not learn
But
anything new as
yeah,
Fania.
unless you're creating it. But
Yeah.
I mean, even at that point, like the majority of us now, like we're we've been doing it for 1 to 10 years.
Hmm.
There's a couple of the people who have been doing it for 15 or 20, and they generally teachers, they're instructors, they lead people through these moves, but it's the pole community has almost exploded in just the past couple of years, and so we're seeing this influx of completely new pole dancers come in, and they're needing this new information, with this information without a prior background in all these other tricks, all these
Yeah.
more advanced tricks that they've never heard of.
Yeah, for sure. So as the currently, if you've looked at the Move Dictionary, it's me teaching. And so the instructions that I give are not meant to be all encompassing. I could spend forever teaching you one move in like a billion different ways, which starting next time we do the show in 2 weeks from now, that's what the on the pole section is of the show, is me starting to break down moves for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so something as basic as the chair spin, there are conditioning exercises for that. There are preps for that and your push pull. There's all kinds of stuff, right? And so when you watch like the Move Dictionary, it is to give you a good idea. It's also to give you safety measures, right? Because that's not something I cover in my video, but it is something that Dusty and I come up with together. Like, what's the safest way for you to come out of this move? How do you not hurt your wrist when you do it? Things like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so with the Move Dictionary, we give you just, a GIF, right? If you don't want to watch my video and listen to me talk, cool. If you get it from the GIF, awesome. If you want to watch my video and listen to me talk, because that's how you learn, cool, awesome. You read better if
Mm-hmm.
if reading that move is the best way for you to receive that information. That's why we have all three. But not only do we have all of that, like Destiny said, we have all of the names.
Mm-hmm.
As someone who was a baby polar at one point, obviously, I did look at stuff like, 1, 2, 3 polling, Cleo's rock and pole, all of those things. And you do learn stuff differently. Again, namings. Like
Yeah.
sometimes they'll come up with their own names, and then I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
cool. Well, now we should add that as a reference because it's valid to call it that, because other people are
Mm-hmm.
going to call it as well. But I'm used to hearing it this way, and that's okay, right? So then we add that as a reference. Like this is also what it's being called somewhere else. So if you hear it, you know what you're looking for specifically.
Yeah.
So yeah, so the Pole Dictionary is a dictionary, but also a thesaurus. I really think that, kind of in the end, the pole move names should be viewed as synonyms and not, people like trying to, again, like rarely do we see or come across like move superiority like complexes, but I do think that they should be viewed as synonyms like completely
Mm-hmm.
across the board. I don't see the pole community becoming any less community driven in the next, decade or so. Like,
No.
it's going to take a really long time before there's a lot of structure And so in the meantime, between time, that's why we're here trying to gather as much information as possible to put together. Now, if you see a name on the card, so if I like teach the froggy, and that's a move dictionary move, you could still search it by the genie and come across it. That's the whole
Hmm.
point of that, right? Is so if you see a name on the card, the name is because Destiny and I have done research and we said, you know what? All people on Instagram are calling it the froggy. By the way, they're all
Hmm.
calling it the genie. Um, so, everyone's calling it the genie, so that's what we're going to put up there. That's the
Hmm.
name. But we are not saying that's the end all be all name. We're saying that's the most popular name. But if you wanted to find
Right.
it by the froggy, you totally could.
Exactly. And between that and prerequisite moves, so everything's linked. If you want to learn this, well, make sure you know these things first. Things like that. I think that the Move Dictionary is going to really be a place to start helping bring that structure together in the community. And so far, we've received a lot of good input from the community. A lot of people saying like, "Hey, I really love this. This helped me a lot," and also people saying like, "Hey, I heard it like this." Like
Yes.
adding like compliments are awesome, and also we want everybody to add their voice too, because
Yeah.
this is a community.
Feedback is super important. So if you come across something and you're like, I have not heard it as any of these names, I hear it as this, let us know. The Move
Mm-hmm.
Dictionary is a living, breathing section of the website. So is the entirety of PolePedia, right? Pole changes and we change with it, right? We try and keep up.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a living, breathing document. We want you to interact with us. We want you to tell us that, hey, this is how I learned it. Can you add this name? Absolutely. Something we forgot in the safety measures, tell us. We will
Yeah.
add it, right? We don't, our intent is not to be like, we're the experts of the experts of the experts. No, we're two people who really freaking love pole and we want to create this community resource, but it's got to have the community behind it to become a community resource. So if you
Right.
come across it and you're like, none of this applies to me, let us know. Let us
Yeah.
help accommodate for you as well, right?
Yeah. And we also have a lot of people saying like, "Hey, I want to learn this move," so we add it into our we have a little queue of moves that we go down and video and build out on the Move Dictionary, and we'll add that into the queue.
Yeah. So because today we don't have our on the poll section, this is probably going to be about the wrap up for the show. So thank you if you watched, and if you're watching us on YouTube later, hello, YouTube people. We understand that everyone is in different time zones, so this may not be the best time for you. You can catch us later. But yeah, so thank you, Destiny, for our first show. Also, congratulations, PolePedia, 2 years.
Yes, today
Yeah.
it is 2 years. And thank you, Kim.
um, so yeah, everyone, thank you for joining us, listening to our names, listening to our move name discussion where we talked about all the names, how to navigate them, and then, if you want to help build out the community resource, you want a voice in how things are named, how they're taught, let us know. Until then,
Yeah.
we'll see you next time. Bye,
Bye.
everybody.